guess I'm one of those classic overnight success stories that takes 20 years to.
Yeah, right.
No, I think I just found this as my niche, and I went all in, and I haven't deviated. I haven't radically changed industries or anything like that over the years. I just have. I don't know. I just do what I do. And so I think it's just finding your niche, being all in. I think it's really tough to have your time and energy get distracted with other things. So you have to be very committed to it, and just keep improving. And over time, I think we all will be surprised if you focus on incremental growth every day. It's amazing when you look back, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years at where you're at. It's these little things add up over time. But it's just something to think about. I think we are living in a golden age of business acquisitions. And I say that because I pay attention to demographics, and 56% of all businesses in America are owned by baby boomers, and 9,000 of them are retiring every single day. Actually, I saw a headline this morning that 2 million more people than expected have retired early this year. So I guess my point is there's going to be a lot of businesses for sale, which can be a good strategy if there's somebody in your industry. A lot of small businesses don't necessarily think about acquiring a competitor. I mean, that they sometimes think that's a big business strategy, but no, it actually could be a small business strategy as well. And there's a lot of people that it's a lot safer, lot less, a lot de-risked if you purchase an existing business as starting it up yourself. So I just think there's going to be a lot of businesses change hands over the next decade as more and more baby boomers retire, and and more people realize that there's financing options that they maybe hadn't considered. See, most businesses in America will either shut down or sell. Or I guess you could say also gift to their kids. But usually it's shut down or sell. And if they sell, most people want to walk away with the sales price. They don't want to do seller financing. But usually it's either seller financed or it's SBA financed. That's for at least small business acquisitions. It's hardly ever financed with ordinary conventional bank financing. So those are your options. Get seller financing or some combination thereof, or SBA financing. There wasn't much dinner table conversation. So I was raised by a single parent, single mother, and she was always hustling and working, and pretty much I have been too since I was about 8. So not a whole lot of time for dinner table topics or talk. If we got a moment, we might have gotten out the TV trays and watched a little TV while we were eating. That's about it.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you were on your own, per se, pretty early on. That's probably, where some of your entrepreneurial tendencies sort of started to spawn. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I've pretty much been working straight since I was 8 years old. Lawn maintenance, I guess is what we called it back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest, so we cut grass in the spring and summer. We raked leaves in the fall, and we shoveled snow in the winter. But that was just the beginning. I've done a lot of different things, had a lot of different businesses over the years. Worked through college, all sorts of stuff. So.
Where'd you go to college at?
I went to undergrad at Loyola University of Chicago.
Okay.
Got a couple bachelor degrees, a BA and a BS, and then I went to grad school at University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School.
Cool.
I actually did a year at Georgetown Law before I realized I was never going to join the legal profession.
Yeah.
I read enough legalese as it is. I can actually do it for a living daily.
Yeah, and coming up with all the legalese too, and actually creating it, that would be pulling toenails. I completely agree.
I was miserable. I think probably 30-40% of my classmates at the time, this is in the mid 90s, I think they wanted to be the next John Grisham or pretty much anything other than practice law, which I thought was kind of fascinating. But oh well.
So what was your next move? You said you've created a bunch of different businesses over the years. Did you graduate college, or did you start something right away? What was kind of your next move there?
No, I did. I went from high school directly to college, and college directly to grad school. I had a t-shirt business in college.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked the whole time, worked in the theater department. I was an RA for a couple of years. In high school, I usually had at least two jobs at any given time. Nothing particularly entrepreneurial necessarily while I was in high school or grade school, other than the lawn maintenance business when I was young. But yeah, I've had a number of businesses once I got out of school. This is my second lending business. I sold my first business to a bank, now going back, what was that, 11 years ago.
Okay.
I actually, because I've financed so many franchise businesses over the years, I really liked that business model as a concept. And so I actually started my own franchise business. It was an upscale barbershop,
Wow.
which we're still in operation. We started the worst time possible, literally at the beginning of the last recession.
Yeah.
I guess '08, fall of '08, terrible timing. I think Lehman Brothers blew up like 3 days after we launched it.
Yeah.
You have like 17 locations. It's called Kennedy's All American Barbershop. It's mostly in the Northeast and here in Florida, which is where I'm based. So there's that business. I've had a marketing business at one point. I mean, just a variety of different things. I've been a consultant, management consultant. I mean, a lot of different entrepreneurial things over the years.
Yeah. And what keeps leading you back to the finance realm? Because it's obviously what you're in now with Fountainhead.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I was saying, when I was a teenager, I remember my mother taking the real estate agent exam and me actually helping her with that because she wanted to be a real estate agent. And by the way, my mother also, that was one side of what she wanted to do. On the other side, she, believe it or not, she was a chocolatier. She made chocolates.
Oh, wow.
In our home, which probably violated all sorts of code, but I think
Yeah.
statute of limitations can't get her at this point. But she was pretty well known in downstate Illinois, where I grew up. People would hire her to make mints for their weddings, and all sorts of different holiday themed chocolates and candies and stuff. And she had quite a business. And actually, I helped her a lot. And probably that was my early sales training, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
On some of that stuff. But yeah, why finance? I think I went to grad school for it. I like it. It's become over time, it's become what I'm most known for. And I think I'm pretty good at it at this point. So, but it's just, it's one of those things that kind of pulls together all my knowledge base over the years. And it's really, I mean, I don't even think about it as necessarily us being in finance or me being a banker. I suppose that's technically what I do for a living. But I'm at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur. My company is very entrepreneurial, and we like to finance entrepreneurs, and that's really where the passion comes from. That's what gets us excited about what we do. We're not just making a loan to somebody; we're usually impacting their lives in a positive way, and improving their net worth. Oftentimes, it's the largest purchase they've ever made. So we take that very seriously. We do a lot of hand holding. A lot of people haven't done this before, obviously, before they get to us. So it's very gratifying. And I think most of my team feels the same way, if not all of them feel the same way.
Yeah. Do you specialize in any type of industries, verticals, anything like that? Or is it pretty well any type of small business?
Yeah. I mean, anything that's eligible for SBA financing, that's what we do. We're one of 14 non-bank SBA lenders nationwide. Only, I think, 8 of us are for profit. And it took about 2.5 years to get licensed by the government to make SBA 7A loans, which is probably the most well-known SBA product. We also do 504s, which is kind of how I made a name for myself in the industry going back a couple decades. But no, we don't necessarily have any industry specialization. I will tell you, we probably do a fair amount of I know we do a fair amount of hospitality, franchise concepts, manufacturers, a lot of professional service providers, fair amount of physicians, just in general, doctors, whether they're veterinarians, dentists, chiropractors, ophthalmologists, all that stuff. Fair amount of daycares we've done over the years too. But that's actually one of the most exciting things about what we do is we just see such a variety of businesses, owners, concepts, business models. I mean, it's really kind of fascinating. You can never really get bored in our industry from where I sit.
Yeah. And are you, if you have a startup, are you able to finance those as well? Like, they don't have a few years worth of tax returns or anything like that. You're still able to get financing for those?
Yeah, you can. It's not a sure thing necessarily. There's a
Yeah.
lot of factors that go into it. I mean, there's a lot of fallacies out there about commercial lending. Oftentimes, you would not be able to get financed as a startup with an ordinary conventional bank.
Yeah.
Often we won't do that. But we don't have any strict rules in terms of how long you have to be in business. A lot of times, an individual lender's credit policy will be overlaid on top of SBA's credit policy. And that's where some of these misconceptions come from. But no, I mean, we've done a number of startups. Oftentimes, if it's a startup, we like to see that they've got that industry specific experience.
Mm-hmm.
We like to see if they've got some outside income, whether it's from a spouse or otherwise. We like to see that they've got some good personal liquidity. Little things like that. We prefer, if it's a startup, we prefer it to be a franchise, just because if they're doing if the franchisor is doing the franchise correctly, then it essentially a business in a box. That's why they're buying it as a system that they can go, and so long as they follow the rules, they should get similar results. And so those are one of the easier ones that we'll finance if it's a startup, or it could be a physician breaking out of a group of doctors, for instance, different things like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it's easier to finance a franchise than some type of other new business model, correct?
Yeah, well, for startups at least, yes.
Yeah. Are there any any benchmarks that you would need to meet? Which I guess that probably the amount that you're looking for probably plays into that as well. But let's just say you're looking for $100,000. What types of things would you need to be able to bring to the table, present, to be able to be, pretty well assured to get that type of a loan?
Well, again, are we talking a startup?
Yeah. Let's go startup.
Okay. So with a startup, typically what we're doing is all the stuff I said before, we're looking at that. But at the end of the day, SBA lending is, and frankly, all commercial lending is relatively simple in that we're looking at cash available thrown off by the business to support our annual debt repayment. Okay. And so a lot of times people will hear this called, does the business cash flow, or what's the debt service coverage ratio, or what's the, what kind of DSCR does the business have, that type of thing. And it's just a ratio. So I liken it to if a business throws off, and I'm going to oversimplify it just for example here. If a business throws off $1.25 of cash available, okay, that could be their net income. That could be some non-cash expenses like depreciation, amortization, interest payments, whatever that total is. If it's $1.25 for every dollar of annual debt payment, we would consider that an acceptable business to finance. Okay, barring some other things that we have to look at, just as a general metric. SBA's requirement is a loan has to cash flow at 1.15 times. Okay. So $1.15 in that type of scenario. Yeah. Now, normally lending is different than venture capital or angel investing or private equity investing, which all that stuff kind of looks forward. We're looking backwards always. Okay. So we're looking at a business tax return or a personal tax return and trying to determine these metrics. The problem is if it's a startup, there's nothing to look back on, right?
Yeah.
So in those cases, we need to get a business plan that has detailed projections, typically 2 to 3 years of projections and very detailed assumptions that back up those projections. And we'll look at it and we'll try to punch holes in it just like any lender would. But again, at the end of the day, then in those cases, we're looking for a 1.15 times coverage on a go forward basis, on the projected basis. And we see all sorts of crazy projections as you'd expect. Sometimes, they're only as good as the people that have put them together and the insights they have in putting them together. So, it's oftentimes a good business plan and a set of projections is not enough to get a loan approved. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got to have some of these other value adds that make us want to do the loan. And again, I'm just speaking from an SBA perspective where we're getting a government guarantee on a portion of the loan. good luck if you want to go to your bank or credit union as a startup and try to get financing. It's just likely not going to happen, other than the SBA route. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
help?
Yeah, no, it does. It absolutely does. Yeah.
So, I mean, I can go on and on about this stuff. I just want to keep it a little high level on something.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And again, I for the listeners, there's a lot of, newer people and people that are, kind of just getting started in business. And, I figured that would be a good topic for them. But yeah, so you do a lot with entrepreneurs too, or I should say, to build up and foster a good environment for entrepreneurs. What are some of the things that you've done before, in your past, to again bolster the entrepreneurial journey?
You mean personally or just generally?
Yeah, like, I mean, I know that you've like lobbied and things like that, and spoken on different entrepreneurial points and all of that. So
yeah, I mean, look, this is my audience, and I'm very passionate about it. I do a fair amount of writing for various national media. I'm oftentimes quoted in a lot of national media. I've done a lot of TV, national TV, all advocating for small business issues and the entrepreneurial community. Here in Orlando, which is where I live, I'm part of a group called the Entrepreneurs Alliance of Orlando. I've been very involved in anything relating to that for, a couple decades. You're right. I've testified before the Senate Small Business Committee in person. I've also submitted written testimony to the House Small Business Committee. Actually, right before I got on this call, I was speaking to somebody on the Senate committee about some other things that are coming up. I just try to be a resource to try and help anything that's entrepreneurial or small business related, because what a lot of people don't understand is that's, looking at the statistics, it's about 47% of the jobs in America.
Yeah, sure.
Is just the small business community. So, and obviously they were disproportionately hurt with, the economic fallout with the pandemic, which is why PPP loans were such an important, kind of leg up for these folks. And we were a big PPP lender. I mean, we almost did 300,000 PPP loans, which is just, I still find it staggering that we even do that much. But I do a lot of things in this space, and these are my people, so to speak. So
yeah.
I try to help them all I can. I speak at a lot of conferences and whatnot as well.
So take a step back a few years. Chris Hurn isn't known, in the entrepreneurial space, right? How did you get yourself into be such an influencer to be able to be, a reference that the news, the media, come and establish or comes to you for advice or, your perspective, and, then, the Senate and all of that. How did you create that type of a persona, I guess you can say?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess I'm one of those classic overnight success stories that takes 20 years to.
Yeah, right.
No, I think I just found this as my niche, and I went all in, and I haven't deviated. I haven't radically changed industries or anything like that over the years. I just have. I don't know. I just do what I do, and
yeah.
I've always had a bit of a change agent sort of a personality in general. I think that's part of my, my DISC assessment or whatever. But so I don't know. So I've if I see something that doesn't look right, I speak up, and I've been doing that in this industry for over 20 years. And a lot of the things that I spoke up about in my early days, when maybe I was, my late 20s, early 30s, when I was, the young buck up and comer, and, people would kind of, elbow me or pull me aside and say, hey, we don't talk about that, or that's not how you bring that up or whatever. Well, looking back, a lot of the changes that have happened in SBA world were something that I've put out there for several times for several years. I've lobbied for it, and I continue to do that to this day. So I think it's just finding your niche, being all in. I think it's really tough to have your time and energy get distracted with other things. So you have to be very committed to it. and just keep improving. And over time, I think we all will be surprised if you focus on incremental growth every day. It's amazing when you look back, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years at where you're at. It's these little things add up over time.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of incremental growth, do you have like internal metrics and all of that you guys are tracking, and
Yep.
you're pushing yourself forward and all of that, and so I guess also along the business standpoint too, have you guys gone through and like created core values and gone that whole path to sort of establish the base benchmark with the culture and establishing all of that as well?
Yeah, probably not as formal as we wanted. We were actually going to do it, and then I think we started it in January of 2020, and we all know what happened a couple months later. So that got backburnered. But I'll tell you, we had going through what we've been through over the last year and a half, despite the fact that a big chunk of my company works from home, and even now a lot of us still work from home, or a hybrid approach. It really brought us much, much closer together. We had this shared mission of trying to help as many small business owners as we could during their PPP loans. We literally pivoted the business in that direction. And, it really enhanced our culture. I mean, I think we had a good culture to begin with. I mean, in, our local metro area, we were named the best places to work a couple times, and which is great. And, to the metrics, I mean, our growth has been explosive. I mean, we just got notified a couple of weeks ago that we were on the Inc. 5000 list, fastest growing companies in America.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's our third year in a row. And this is, by the way, Fountainhead's my second company that I've put on the Inc. 5000 list that's grown. It's been on the list 3 years in a row. Next year will be my lucky number 7. It'll be our 4th year on the list. And I could tell you the reason I'm so confident is because, we're in the quadruple digit growth.
Wow.
So it's been a lot. Yeah.
So to get on the list too, I'm actually curious about this. I don't think I've ever asked this before, but do you guys have to submit information to be able to get on the list, or is it like, they're just monitoring and watching different?
No, you have to submit stuff, and our accounting firm is the one that's done it over there. So no, they validate your financials. It's your growth rate over 3 years.
Okay.
And, a dirty little secret that I've never been able to take advantage of in both my companies that are on the list, which is if you start your business and this is going to sound terrible, so I hope somebody does it. Take this advice, it's fine, but just understand it's you're kind of gaming the system a little bit. If you start your business in like October, November, December, and you only do a little bit of revenue that year, and then you launch massively the year after, you'll have a much higher growth percentage, which means you'll be higher up on the list or position yourself to be on the list to begin with. Unfortunately, both of my companies in this space, I started in February.
Okay. So you had the whole year. Yeah.
First year.
Yep. That makes sense. I've never heard that before. Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. It's just a little quirk in the system. And I also don't really like the fact that it's fastest growing based on revenue growth. Obviously, to be sustainable, they need to get profits, but then again, wouldn't be as so forthcoming in showing their financials if it was profit based as opposed to.
No, that makes sense. So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, since you're so plugged into these different outlets, is there anything that comes to mind that people should be mindful of, given where we are in the market cycle and that anything that, pops up right now at all?
Well, I mean, real estate's relatively expensive, as probably a lot of us know. Although I don't know that the need for commercial real estate is quite where it was before. I mean, in 2019, I wrote a book in 2012 about this very thing, about how this is one of the best ways for entrepreneurs to enhance their wealth and to create wealth for themselves, which is to own the commercial real estate that their business operates from. Usually that's pretty good advice. I mean, I took it myself. I mean, I eat my own dog food. We own our own office building, but I will tell you in December of 2019, I thought I needed to buy another office to expand. And a few months later, the pandemic hits, and now I'm scratching my head going, I have too much damn space. What am I supposed to do with all this space?
Yeah.
So maybe put an asterisk on that. What I'm seeing, and there's not much talk about it. And again, I actually wrote an article a couple of years ago. I can't remember what it was called. It was in Forbes, and it was talking about how, a lot of business owners enjoy watching Shark Tank, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the fundamental problems with Shark Tank, and I understand why they do it, okay, because they're getting a little, the program's getting a little piece of equity. If they actually invest, if the business owner accepts the offer, then obviously they're giving up a little piece of the equity in the business. But basically my contention in the article was a lot of small businesses need to really think twice about that. Equity is always more expensive than debt.
Sure.
As SBA financing, which a lot of people still have reservations about, or believing some of the myths and misperceptions. But if you can take advantage of SBA financing, you don't have to give up any equity for that.
Yeah.
And it should be part of the financing strategy as you go through your business cycle, your growth cycle as you go. You don't want to necessarily rush right out and give a piece of your business to an angel investor or a Shark Tank. Shark, or friends and family or that sort of thing, if you can help it. I mean, sometimes it's better to get a loan, and you're going to be way better off because you're oftentimes not going to be able to claw that equity back. And once you've given it to somebody, it is what it is. And then you got to live with the consequences. Now you also have a partner too, which, I could argue both sides of that too, but it's just an interesting dynamic. I think some of us, you sit there on your couch and you're watching Shark Tank and you're like, oh, look what Cubans offered them, or look what Barbara wants to do, or what have you. But you got to pull yourself back and go, well, wait a second. Is there a better way for these businesses to accomplish their vision, what they want to do? And I would argue that a lot of times there is. Now, sure, they're getting great publicity by being a whole different consideration, but it's just something to think about. I think we are living in a golden age of business acquisitions. And I say that because I pay attention to demographics, and 56% of all businesses in America are owned by baby boomers, and 9,000 of them are retiring every single day. And actually, I saw a headline this morning that 2 million more people than expected have retired early this year. So I guess my point is there's going to be a lot of businesses for sale, which can be a good strategy if there's somebody in your industry. A lot of small businesses don't necessarily think about acquiring a competitor. I mean, that they sometimes think that's a big business strategy, but no, it actually could be a small business strategy as well. And there's a lot of people that it's a lot safer, lot less, lot de-risked if you purchase an existing business as starting it up yourself. So I just think there's going to be a lot of businesses change hands over the next decade as more and more baby boomers retire, and and more and more people realize that there's financing options that they maybe hadn't considered. See, most businesses in America will either shut down or sell. Or I guess you could say also gift to their kids. But usually it's shut down or sell. And if they sell, most people want to walk away with the sales price. They don't want to do seller financing. But usually it's either seller financed or it's SBA financed. That's for at least small business acquisitions. It's hardly ever financed with ordinary conventional bank financing. So those are your options. Get seller financing or some combination thereof, or SBA financing.
Yeah. And in that situation, if you were a buyer coming to the SBA to buy an existing business, that existing business already has years worth of tax returns. So that would be able to support the purchase price or the business model, if you will. And then you would have to qualify for that loan with, net worth, liquidity, all that kind of stuff. Correct?
Yeah. Essentially. I mean, hopefully they support the But and that's, and interestingly enough, I still have those conversations every once in a while with a business broker who are usually the people, just like a real estate broker, right? But sometimes they don't understand. Yeah, you really, when you're dealing with a seller, you should make sure they're understanding that it would be helpful. It will help the process of them selling the business to whoever their buyer is if you as the seller can provide your historical financials. Because if we don't have that, we don't have much to go off of. Then, it just kind of puts a red flag there. Like, well, why isn't the seller willing to share that information? What is he not telling us? And, oh, by the way, now as a lender, I've got to rely on projections. And we already talked about that. Projections are, you got to discount them always.
Yeah.
And they're not terribly reliable. So in those situations, I would much prefer to see the tax returns on how the business performed, the interim financial statements. I'll pull tax transcripts to make sure that they didn't make them up, that what they filed with the IRS is what they gave us. So little things like that. But yeah, that's important stuff. And it's probably a lot easier, like I said, to buy a business that's had good positive cash flowing history than just starting it up from scratch.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Chris, this has been fantastic. If people want to learn more about you, Fountainhead, anything like, I know you've done a lot of writing and all of that. What would be the best way to reach out and get in touch and learn a little bit more?
We can go to our website, which is fountainheadcc.com, fountainheadcc.com. We're on all the social media channels, of course. You can reach out to us there, follow us, subscribe, what have you. We got a lot of videos, although I haven't updated them in a little while. I've been a little busy, preoccupied with PPP for a while.
Yeah, right.
But we've got a lot of videos on our YouTube channel. Just Google me or the company, and there's a ton of information out there. We try to produce a lot of educational content for our space. Those are the ways to reach out to us for sure.
Love it. Chris, this is fantastic. And there's still more questions floating around in my head, but we'll save that for another day. So again,
yeah,
exactly. Yes. Many, many thanks for being on the show, Chris.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.